Well, it is now official. No more regular season, no extended version of the playoffs, and for the first time since 1904, no World Series, Brendan. What's up, pretty? Yogi Berra said it ain't over till it's
Baseball, America's pastime sport, once the most popular and one of the most influential sports in American history, was headed for a new direction in the mid-1990s, but not a positive one. The year was 1994, and the battlegrounds that fans saw on the field between their favorite teams was now headed to a courtroom, and after 232 days, the strike would leave a fan base heartbroken and change the sport forever.
Unlike previous seasons, the 1994 season began slightly differently. The collective bargaining agreement expired in December, leaving players and owners without a binding contract. Initially, many felt that it wouldn't be a big deal since the MLB was no stranger to these types of negotiations. Prior to the 1994 season, work stoppages in 1985 and 1990 had similar issues, but the players and owners were able to reach an agreement and new contracts were signed relatively quickly. However, something was different in 1994.
The owners approached negotiations confident that they would get what they wanted. The owners made their initial proposal for the new agreement on June 14, 1994. The collective bargaining agreement is a 4-year-old contract that lays out the terms and rules negotiated by the Major League Baseball Players Association and the Owners Association. Then the owners threw the Major League Baseball Players Association a curveball. They sat down at the table with two goals. They wanted a salary cap, which is the ability to limit a player's yearly earnings, as well as the elimination of free agency, something that had not been brought up in previous labor conflicts. Fans could feel the tension in the air. The players were frustrated with the owner's offer, to say the least. Baseball was the only sport in which free agency was potentially under question. In any other industry, workers could move from employer to employer without any scrutiny. Why should baseball be any different?
You know, I was a player and I support players. I'm much more on the mindset of these guys work their entire lives to be the best at what they do, and they should be, compensated appropriately for that. So if you're trying to basically take any money or freedoms in regard to the free agency away from them, then I'm pretty against that because they're the ones that did all the work to get there.
An appearance on The Charlie Rose Show shed a light on the true struggle of the negotiation, as it revealed the true hardship between the two sides to reach an agreement. And, as each day passed, fans slowly stopped holding out hope that the two sides would come to an agreement. In the final 15 games leading up to the alleged strike, Baltimore Orioles owner Peter Angelos hoped they would come to an agreement.
Any reason to believe that this is going to be a short strike?
Well, a couple of days ago I would have answered negatively, but there have been some indications today and some conversations I've had with some of the owners who must remain unnamed, that there seems to be some movement on both sides to try to make this strike a short one, and hopefully that will work out.
Why did it happen?
Unfortunately for Peter Angelos and all of the baseball fans, as the last stat was recorded, a deal hadn't been reached. Baseball had struck out.
The owners specifically wanted salary arbitration to keep more money in their pockets. If they capped players' yearly earnings, they would continue to save money even as players' value increased. They claimed this would go towards the smaller market teams in order to even the playing field for the sport. In order to keep players who were performing well for their team, the owners wanted to restrict free agency. Instead of allowing teams to compete for player services, they wanted to limit players to only one offer. For the first time since 1904, the World Series was canceled. Fans couldn't believe it. No one could have predicted that the strike would escalate to this point.
Players who weren't on superstar contracts struggled without a reliable source of income. Many had to find other employment. Tommy Mitchell, who'd been playing for the Texas Rangers at the time, had to start selling sporting goods at a Kmart in Nevada. Aaron Sell, the star pitcher for the Red Sox, returned to Washington University to complete his degree. The Rangers' second baseman, Jeff Fry, would even work at a car dealership when the strike began until the season started up again in 1995. It finally reached a point where the government began threatening to step in.
By late 1994, President Bill Clinton designated former Labor Secretary W.J. Ussery as the federal mediator.
Members of Congress, such as Senator Orrin G. Hatch, threatened, "If you do not want Congress to be involved, then settle this dispute yourself." Donald Fehr from the Players Union told Ohio Senator Howard Metzenbaum that if Congress ended baseball's antitrust exemption, then the players would be willing to end the strike the next day. Naturally, that proposal was quickly shut down by the owners. Donald Fehr and the Players Association had had enough.
As a result, the MLBPA filed a federal complaint to the National Labor Relations Board in March of 1995. The MLBPA asserted that the owners' negotiations were no longer in good faith and that their attempts at the negotiations were, for the most part, meager, if not pointless, seeing that the owners were not willing to compromise and insisted on bullying their way into the negotiations, which the Players Association felt was a violation of labor rights and practices. After much discussion, the NLRB decided in a 3-2 vote that the issue would need a court order to determine if labor rights were being violated. After nearly 8 months, baseball was headed to court.
5 days later, after reviewing each party's case, in the United States District Court, Judge Sonia Sotomayor argued that the owners were violating the National Labor Relations Act by attempting to impose unfair working conditions by means of unilaterally limiting their employees' wages and their ability to choose who their employer is without negotiating in good faith.
An injunction would prohibit the use of replacement players. Judge Sonia Sotomayor also reinstated the previous contract agreements, much to the owners' disappointments, until a new one was drawn up. Thousands rejoiced in America's pastime returning for 1995. However, the damage had already been done. Was it already too late?
Many fans were outraged by the strike's poor handling, and they had plenty of reasons to be angry. The MLB lost out on a season of history that could have featured Tony Gwynn hit .400, which no one had done since Ted Williams in 1941. A number of players could have broken Roger Maris's home run record, and, of course, the greatest spectacle in baseball, the World Series, was canceled for the first time in history. With the tensions and emotions elicited by the strike, combined with the loss of nearly $1 billion in revenue, the MLB's future did not look promising.
Over the next few seasons, attendance dropped for all but 3 teams, with an average of over 6,000 fans per game. Lower attendance numbers wreaked havoc on small market teams more than anyone else, as evidenced by the unfortunate relocation of the Montreal Expos to Washington several years later. Sports Illustrated went so far as to create and write a fictional week-by-week fantasy season finale, complete with a Dark Horse World Series winner and projections for all of the exciting record-breaking moments, with a drastic change for kids who grew up trading baseball cards and team bed sheets. With pennants taped to the walls, and it was all over for fans who abandoned the MLB after the strike. Many fans resorted to only watching minor league games, some even leaving the sport entirely.
However, how do we answer the question of who was responsible? Once the negotiations finally ended, the strike ended up favoring the players, as the reinstatement of the previous collective bargaining agreement negated many items the owners were negotiating for. Players were able to push for larger contracts and more money. While the owners did gain free agent compensation, which means they get paid if a player leaves in free agency, ultimately, the owners lost the key items they were fighting for, which was a salary cap. To this day, the MLB is still the only sport without one. But the blame and responsibility could be applied to both sides of the strike. Many players, such as Cecil Fielder, the superstar first baseman for the Detroit Tigers, said that baseball should be run like a business.
This is bigger than the players and the owners. This is baseball, so it's a business, and there's some things going on right now that both sides don't approve of. And
what Cecil distinctly left out, however, was a key piece of the equation: the fans. A survey conducted by Adam Gruber in 1996 interviewed fans and revealed that over 40% of those fans would not be returning to the sport as a result of the strike. From the standpoint of the owners, chief negotiator of the baseball club owners, Richard Ravitch, stated that baseball is a form of entertainment, and thus players should only be paid the amount of money that they are valued by the sport.
In the entertainment business, John, which I acknowledge, which you have pointed out many times, baseball it's not a blue-collar industry. And I'm the first guy to say that we are indeed in the entertainment industry, that our players are our stars, the heart and soul of the game. In the entertainment industry, people get paid on a percentage basis.
I attempted to reach out to a member of a team's organization for comments. However, they declined due to a policy that stated they were not allowed to discuss the 1994 strike. As someone who was making a documentary about the subject, it made sense to me, but as a fan, well, it hurt. It was disappointing to see the MLB trying to hide their problems once more.